think it's really a shame that most of our current Talmidim did not know Rabbi Perlman, Zechat Levrocha. Because of his illness, he was out of the yeshiva for quite a while. But I think just to understand the person that we had, the impact that he had on so many hundreds and hundreds of Bachrim and Avrechim and on their lives, I think it's important for you to hear. This was someone who was in our yeshiva 45 years, giving every bit of his being to helping our Talmidim develop and helping our Talmidim become true B'nai Torah. So I think just to reflect on who he was and what he meant to all of us and how it can give us chizuk, strength going forward. So I was thinking that if I think about this big person, Rav Perlman, Zechat Levrocha, the thing that comes to mind is the Mishnah Pirkei Avos. Shimon HaTzadik Omer, Al Shloisha Dvarim Ha'olim Oimid. The world stands on three things: Torah, Avoida, Gemilas Chasadim. The world stands on Torah, Avoida, and the Rabbeinu Yonah says, what's Pshat Avoida? Bizman Hazeh. Avoida is Tefillah. And Gemilas Chasadim and Chesed. And the Rabbeinu Yonah says, Pshat in the Mishnah, it doesn't mean that the world is standing on those things literally because I have a steer at the end of Pirkei Avos. He says that's why the world was created. The world was created so there should be Torah, and there should be Avoida, and there should be Gemilas Chasadim. And I think that these three things really describe the Niftar, they really describe Rav Perlman, Zechat Levrocha. And I'd like to go one by one. I'd like to go into these three things one by one, and what we can learn from him, how we can carry on his legacy. Let's start with Tefillah. So in my head, from learning Musar, you always try to have an image of different things in your head to make it real. Right? The Kuzari talks about this concept, Sfornu. You should have an image of something. So when you try to picture the Avodah on Yom Kippur, it's a hard thing to try to picture the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur doing Avodah. What did that look like? What did that feel like? How do we recreate what was going on there? So the image I always had in my mind was Rabbi Perlman. That was the image to me of a Kohen Gadol. Seeing him daven, talus over his head, seeing how every single word, how he was focused, how his pronunciation so perfect, his kavanah so intense, and that voice, that beautiful voice, to me that was the image of the Kohen Gadol. That's how I tried to picture Kohen Gadol. I tried to picture it in my mind. That was the image that came to my mind, was Rabbi Perlman. And it's not that he just naturally davened. Some people are naturally, they naturally daven. He worked at it. The family told me that he had tens of books on tefillah. And he learned them. And he studied them. And he went into each word of the tefillah to understand what's happening there and what's behind it all. He worked at tefillah. He was an oiven in tefillah. And so I think that's something we can learn from him. In Ali Shor, Rav Wolbe says the following. He says a fascinating big chiddush, but he says the following. Hasidur hu ha-sefer ha'amok v'akoshe b'yosir mikol asfarim shebetorah shebal peh shenchilunu rabosenu ha'chazal. He says the Siddur is the deepest book in Torah Shebal Peh, more than Yevamos, more than Eruvin, more than the first parak of Bamatzia. The Siddur is the deepest book in Torah Shebal Peh. So how many of us invest in that sefer? Learning it and going in ba'amkas into it and learning it be'iyun. Rav Perlman did. Rav Perlman learned it. Tens of svarim that he learned be'iyun about tefillah. How to daven better, how to connect better, how to have the right kavanas to talk to the Rabbeinu Shalom. That's something that I think that we can learn. It says in Parashas Toildos, V'yetar Yitzchak l'Hashem l'noichach ishtoi ki akarahi. That Yitzchak davened to HaKadosh Baruch Hu opposite his wife because she was barren. She couldn't have children. So they started to daven. Yitzchak and Rivka started to daven. They should be able to have children. And the Kodesh Baruch Hu answers Yitzchak, which is a whole discussion in Rashi, what's the pshat in that? But I want to focus on the word v'yetar. What is this word v'yetar? Why does it say v'yispalel? Or by Moshe Rabbeinu it says v'yaschanan. Right? So what does it mean? V'yetar. What's this strange word? V'yetar Yitzchak la'Hashem le'noichach ishto ki akarahi. And also, the fact, why does it say akarahi? It doesn't say ki sagar Hashem es rachma. God closed her womb. It says she was barren. So what's that mean? So Rashi says the pshat is v'yetar means that hiftzara v'riboy tefillah. He put a lot of work into the tefillah. Seems to imply repetition or effort on the part of Yitzchak. But the Nesiv Shalom brings here a different idea. He brings from the Zohar and from the Medrash that the lashon of vayetar is a lashon of chatira, of digging. Vayetar is a language of digging, and he even says, he brings a raya that it's like baba machteres. When a person's breaking and entering into a house, he digs under the wall, right? The lashon chatira comes the same sharish as machteres, digging. When a person's breaking and entering into a house, he digs under the wall. So according to this understanding from the Zohar and the Medrash, what does it mean that Yitzchak davened? It means that Yitzchak dug. He dug deep inside of himself. He dug deep to try to research the mercy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He was digging and digging and digging, and even when something looks impossible, when there's a wall in front of you you can't penetrate, if you dig deep enough, you can go under the wall. Even if a person's Avera is holding back, or Teva holds him back, if he goes under the wall, he can get his tefillas can be answered. And that's what Yitzchak did. Akarahi, the Nesiv Shalom's medayik, by Chana it says she Yizkar Hashem es Rachma, that means she had a rechem. If it says by Rivka that she was Akara, she probably didn't even have a rechem. And he was able to bring a nace because he dug under the wall. He went under the wall, he was able to change Teva. That's what tefillah can do. I'll tell you an interesting story. I saw it in a Frum publication, so I assume it's true, that there was a Yid, that his kid was very sick. And the doctors, they're not supposed to do this, but the doctor said, your child has 2 more weeks to live. That's it. Rare disease, we can't help you. He's got 2 more weeks to live. And so they said to him, there's this fancy doctor, choshev doctor from America that's coming here. Maybe you want to check him out. Maybe he can help you. He's the only thing we could think of that maybe could help. And he's coming in a few days. So this Yid, he's all excited. Baruch Hashem, maybe there's a help for my son. So he finds out the doctor is going to be in such and such hospital at such and such an hour. Davens quickly, doesn't even drink anything, doesn't eat anything, runs off to the hospital to meet the doctor. Gets to the hospital, he's already weak, in depleted state. And the hospital says, sorry, he left. He's not here. So the father's broken. He says, so where is he? He's another hospital, another area. Okay, father's still doesn't drink, still doesn't eat. He's got to save his kid. Jumps in a cab, runs to the other hospital, gets a second hospital. He says, where's this doctor? They said he left, went to another hospital. So now he's very, very depleted. It's already the day is moving on. Gets in the cab, goes to the third hospital to try to find this chashuv doctor. And when he gets to the third hospital, they say, sorry, he's off to the airport. He doesn't give up. Gets in the cab, he hasn't eaten, he hasn't drank all day. Gets in the cab, gets to the airport. He's all excited, hopefully I'll chop this doctor. They said, sorry, he checked in. He passed through security, we can't let you in. And in the check-in, they saw the fellow's about to pass out. He's turning white. He hasn't eaten all day, hasn't drank all day. They said, get him some water. He's about to pass out. They give the Yid a cup of water, and he realizes now, no doctors, nothing. It's just him and the Rabbeinu Shalom. And he yells out the bracha of Shakol at the top of his lungs. Shakol niya bevaro, it's all you. He drinks, he passes out. That's what happens to this fellow. Next day he goes to the doctors. Doctor said, there's nothing wrong. Your child is we don't understand it. The sickness went away. One bracha, lamitoy, a shakol with all the kavana, took away everything. So that's how I pictured, when I used to watch Reb Perlman daven, that's how I pictured him davening. Every bracha was like that. Every tefillah, every word was that kind of kavana, that kind of intention. He was a bal avoda. And since he's passed away, I can only say for myself, ishit, it's helped me with my tefillah, because I picture him. You know, it's because a person leaves this world, you want to carry his legacy. I picture him davening, it's helping my davening. It's helping me be a little more focused. Chesed, milas chasodim, care for the talmidim, mesiras nefesh for the talmidim. So I didn't have that much involvement with him because he was more in the base medrash. I was in the center program. But we worked together in shidduchim. And I saw how much he cared about these fellows. One, they should get married, and two, they should stay married. To help them, giving them hadracha to find their bashert, and to give them hadracha after they got married so that they would know how to treat their wives. Amazing, the amount of care that he had for each guy. So I'll tell you two maisim that I had with him. First maisa was, we had a period of time in yeshiva when shidduchim wasn't going well. And for whatever reason, we couldn't find shidduchim for the boys. A month would go by, another month. They weren't even getting any suggestions. It was just flat. So I went to talk to him. I said, what are we going to do? How are we going to get out of this? So he said, you know what? Let's make a meeting with the shadchanim. Let's make a meeting together with the shadchanim, see if we can open up the gateways a little bit. See, he's a very choshev, a distinguished Talmid Chacham, right? And he has nothing better to do than sit with a bunch of shadchanim and try to see if we can open up the gates. So we went, the two of us went, and we had all these ladies, we're sitting there with all these shadchanim, and we got them going, they're all arguing, they're all talking about this bacher and that bacher and this girl and that girl. After a while, we realized we had nothing to say, so we were speaking and learning. We went off to the side speaking and learning, and after that, the whole thing opened up. Boy after boy got engaged, and just that care, the care, especially in this area of life, which is the most significant area of life, a guy getting married, what kind of home he's going to build, and keeping that home together. I'll tell you another Maisa that I was personally involved with. There's a boy who learned in the center program. He was an alter bacher. So we know there's a thing called the alter bacher syndrome. You know, and guys get older, they have all kinds of demands, they have all kinds of things that they need, in a shidduch. And this was holding this boy back. And he moved on to the base medrash program, and he came under the care of Rabbi Perlman. The boy told me the story. I heard this from the guy himself. So, anyways, he was, things weren't going well. He kept going out, and this isn't good enough, and that's not good enough. And so Rabbi Perlman said, tell me something. What do you want? What are you looking for? So the guy pulls a little paper out of his pocket, and he starts reading off all the things he wants. And Rabbi Perlman looks at the guy. The guy told me the story. Rabbi Perlman says, wow, that's amazing. Can I see your paper? So the guy gives him the paper. Rabbi Perlman tears up the paper and puts it in his lap, and he says, you get rid of this, you'll be able to get engaged. And 3 months later, he got engaged. He's got a beautiful mishpacha. He saw each guy what he needed and what he had to do in every situation. We see by Moshe Rabbeinu in last week's parasha. Rashi says, "Shenasan libo ve'einav el achav." He gave his heart and his eyes to his brothers. Even though he grew up in Paro's house and grandeur, he saw his brothers. He didn't just see them. He gave his heart and his eyes to his brothers. That's real chesed, right? When we give to an ani, we have to feel his tsar, right? We have to. The Torah tells us imach, with him. We have to feel his tsar. We have to put ourselves in his shoes. I felt that with Perlman, when a boy wasn't getting married, or a boy needed something, he felt that he needed that. He felt his tsar, and that's why he was so effective in helping people. The last of the three Torah, huge Talmid Chacham, Talmud of Rav Nachum in Mir, I know when we had Shver in the Gemara, we didn't understand a Rashi. Right? We go to him. He always had a mahalach in the Rashi. He always had the best mahalach in the Rashi. And as we all know, learning Rashi is the hardest. Right? The other Rishonim, the Taisis, the Ritva, the Rashba, the Rosh, they tell you what they want. The Rashi, it's all covered over, the Rashi. And he could learn those Rashis. He would learn them so beautifully. And he had such an impact on the Talmidim. He had a lot of other things he would say in the Sugya, but especially the Rashis. He would learn the Rashis with such precision and so beautifully. And his Chumash Shiurim, famous Chumash Shiurim that people listened to, hundreds and hundreds of Talmidim benefited from those Shiurim, those excellent Shiurim. So what we see here is an amazing Jew. And if we can take a little bit from the way he lived, his Torah, his Avodah, his Gemilas Chasadim, if we can walk in his ways a little bit, then that's a big deal. Then we're his Talmidim, following in his footsteps. My bakasha is he should continue to daven for us. For the family, for the Rebbetzin, for his children, for all of us, his spiritual children. Should keep digging. Should keep digging in Shemayim. Klal Yisrael needs a lot of Yeshuas, going through a very difficult tkufa. Should dig for all of us. Keep davening for Klal Yisrael. Bila Hashem, Bila Moves Nenetzach, Yimach Hashem Dima, Kopon.
It's difficult for me to be maspid, someone who so intimately shared my life, and I shared my life with him for 57 years. When we came to Eretz Yisrael, at that time, Israel was a backwater. Just to give you one example, in the whole city of Yerushalayim, there was one traffic light, Rehov Yafo and King George. No pizza stores, one falafel store with a Mahadran Hechsher. The Mir was not the empire that it is today. There were about 200 Talmidim in the Yeshiva, not 10,000. Of the 200, maybe a quarter, maybe 50 were American Bachrim. We were family to each other, all of us. A fraction of those 50 Bachrim remained in Eretz Yisrael. And within that fraction, we had members of a clique within that group. Each step of life, from that time, from the time we were Bachrim and while we were married, we were intimately involved in the other's life, helping each other. Whenever any one of our children got married, everyone else would make Sheva brachas for that child. His Rebbetzin and my wife were classmates in the same seminary. We got married within a week of each other. As was mentioned already, Mordechai was at Lamden, a big Lamden. I still remember at his Sheva Brachas, Reb Nachum got up and said that this chassan understands Rashi. For anyone who didn't know Reb Nachum or hear of Reb Nachum, or his son-in-law, Reb Asher, think what kind of a compliment is that? This is the biggest compliment that Reb Nachum could give someone, that he knew Rashi. Nachum spent his whole life learning through Rishonim and everything else in order to understand Rashi. If he said Reb Mordechai knew Rashi, it was a tremendous shvach. In that, in the parasha that we read a week ago, V'yechi, Yaakov Avinu speaking to Yosef, and he's explaining to Yosef and apologizing to Yosef why he buried his mother, Rachel, why he didn't bury her in Hebron. Not only why he didn't bury her in Hebron, but he didn't even bury her in Beis Lechem. He buried her Baderech, on the way to Beis Lechem. And he explains to Yaakov Avinu, this was all al pi adibur, this was a tzivui from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so that she could cry and bemoan her children going into Golus when they would pass her grave. Reb Mordechai's Rebbe, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, who was his Rebbe along with Reb Nachum, Reb Chaim's son-in-law, would ask the question, okay, Mameli couldn't bury her in Hebron. That was too far away. But why couldn't he take her into the city and bury her in Beis Lechem? How far is Beis Lechem from Kever Rachel? Some of us still remember before there was peace and we could go to Beis Lechem, we could go to Kever Rachel in those days. It's a few meters. So Reb Chaim used to say that if a person wants to be mispalel for others, wants to help and assist others, they have to be mamish in their position. If they're not in their position and they're not in their situation, then there's going to lack in their tefillos, there's going to lack in a commitment to assisting them. Even Rachel Imenu, the Mama Rachel, if she would have been a few feet further removed from her children who were going into Golus, she wouldn't have davened with the intensity that was necessary to be answered that the Rabban Shalom is going to bring them back someday. B'shovu bonim ligvulam. Person has to be in the other person's situation to understand them, to be mispalel for them. In this week's parsha was already mentioned, says that Moshe Rabbeinu was yotze al Echov. He went out to his brothers. He left the palace of Paro to be with his brothers. And Rashi says, Litin Einov v'liboy meitzar aleim, that a person has to see it. He has to see the other person suffering in order to put himself in that other person's situation, in order to be mispalel for them, in order to help them, in order to empathize and sympathize with the other person. The person has to, nasan einov, he has to put his eyes on the other person's situation in order to put himself there, in order to be mispalel properly, in order to help properly. This week's parsha, one more raya Reb Chaim used to bring, it says that Rabbanu Shalom Mitzavim, he commanded Moshe Rabbeinu about Bnei Yisrael and about Paro, and the Yerushalmi asks, comes to answer the question, what did he command about Bnei Yisrael? Where was the tzivui to Bnei Yisrael? And the Yerushalmi says that the tzivui was the mitzvah of Shiluach Avodim. At the time that, this was before Makkos, before the 10 Makkos, at the time when Klal Yisrael was on the verge of leaving Mitzrayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them a mitzvah that after an Eved Ivri has served for 6 years, the Adon should be prepared to free him. Why at this time? Again, because it's very difficult for a person to free his Eved. He invested so much time and so much money in him. He became accustomed to him, used to him, to his service. And now he's going to free him. He has to feel what the Eved feels, that he wants to go home, he wants to go back to his family. He has to feel the negativity of being an Eved. When could Klal Yisrael feel that? When they are on the verge of leaving Mitzrayim. After being Avodim in Eretz Mitzrayim, and being Golos 210 years, now they knew what it felt like to be an Eved, so now is the time to give them that mitzvah of Shiluach Avodim, of freeing the Avodim. A person has to feel it. And that comes with Nasan Einov, Nasan Liboy. One last thought of Reb Chaim I want to bring is that the Gemara says that there are 4 types of people that are compared to a mace, that are compared to a dead person. Who are these people? An ani, a poor person, a person, Rachmana litzlan, that has no children, a mitzaira, and a summa, a blind person. So we understand, this the Maharal explains, and Chaim Shmulevitz used to explain the same as the Maharal more or less, that a person who's an ani, a poor person, is as if he's dead. Because what does it mean to be alive? Why were we brought into this world? We were brought into this world to emulate the Rabbanu Shalom. This world represents HaKadosh Baruch Hu's midah hatova, to give. To give loving kindness to people. And this is, we have to emulate him by pursuing loving kindness. An ani does not have the wherewithal to be able to give. He's lacking in the ability to give. The same thing, a Mitzayra has nobody to give to. He's isolated outside the camp. He has nobody to give to. Someone who has no children. Like the saying goes, charity begins at home. If a person really wants to give, it starts with his own family. So therefore, a person without children ultimately cannot be a giver. But why is a blind person considered to be dead? Because he can't see the other person suffering. You have to see the other person suffering. Like we saw from this week's Parsha. Moshe Rabbeinu saw, and therefore he was able to sympathize and empathize with others. As we heard already, Mordechai saw other people's problems. He learned up the sugi of other people. Just like he knew how to learn up a sugi in Gemara, a sugi in Tanakh, in Tefillah, in Musar, in Machshava. He was able to listen, to put himself in the other person's position, be able to empathize, sympathize with them, and give them the proper eitzah. Before he joined Ohr Somayach, when he was offered a job here, he asked his Rebbe, Reb Chaim, if he should take the job in Ohr Somayach. As many of you know, he repeated this many times. And Reb Chaim told him, you can work in Ohr Somayach only if Ohr Somayach is a real yeshiva. If it's not a real yeshiva, I don't allow you to go there. What is a real yeshiva, said Reb Chaim? 4 conditions. They have a dining room, the Bachrim eat together, they have a dormitory, they sleep together, they daven together, and they learn Musar. What do the first 3 things have in common? That's what makes it a yeshiva. If they don't fulfill these conditions, it's not a yeshiva. Then you can't go and teach there. A yeshiva has to be a kamaradei. It has to be a group. It has to be those that are together as one group. If not, it's not a yeshiva. That's the ultimate purpose of a yeshiva. Rav Wolbe used to say that we always talk about changing in yeshiva. What's this change? What am I coming from and going to? Rav Wolbe used to say, coming to quote maybe Rav Dessler, you're coming from being a selfish person before you enter yeshiva to a selfless person, to a giver. You're being transformed from a taker to a giver. That's the whole purpose of all the learning, the musar, everything, is to be transformed from a taker to a giver. And this is what Reb Mordechai tried to instill here in the Bachrim, making this into a place of unity, of achdus. To be cohesive, a brotherhood, a community. And he did it by listening, by learning up each person's parsha, by seeing what was exactly bothering this person, what was exactly troubling this person, getting all of the details from the person to really understand and to really know how to build this person up and to give her maces. Mordechai should be a Meilus Yesher for his Choshev Rebbetzin. Chani soll sie sein gesund, who's Moiser Nefesh for him all of these years, who assisted him and enabled him to be successful in his Avodas Hashem, especially the last 5 years or more. She served as his Ezer Kenegdo, as his Eishes Chayil during his illness, even going to Golus America for a year for treatments. Rebbeinu Shalom should help her. She's been spaled for the entire Mishpacha, Ohr Somayach, for all B'nai Torah, and for all of Klal Yisrael.
Birshus the Rosh Yeshiva, the Rosh Yeshiva, the Rabbonim, and all the Tzibur. First thing I want to say, to thank the Yeshiva here that gave my father the place to take out his miles and to teach the Bochim. He could get out what he had inside, what he learned, what he got from his Rabbonim, to give it out here in Ohr Somayach. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says, Tonu Rabbonon, כשכל הרב לזר נכנסו הרבה זקנים לבקרוי. When Rabbi Lezer got sick, so the Chacham came to make Bikur Cholim. Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Lozer ben Azariah, and Rabbi Akiva. Nano Rabbi Tarfon v'Omar, said Rabbi Tarfon, Tevato leYisrael mitipo shel Gshomim. שטיפו של גשמים בעולם הזה, ורבי בעולם הזה ובעולם הבא. The rain gives here, just in this oilam, the toiles from the rain is here in the oilam. But the Rebbe, he gives also for oilam abba. נעל רבי ישוע ואומר, טוב אותו לישראל יויסר מגלגל חמו. שגלגל חמו בעולם הזה, ורבי בעולם הזה ובעולם הבא. The son gives here the toilet here in the oilam, but the Rebbe also in Mazeh, also in oilam abba. Nano Rabbi Lozer ben Azariah v'Oimar, Tevato leYisrael yoiser me'av ve'eim. Av ve'eim is just in this oilam, but the Rebbe is also in oilam abba. It explains Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz, Rosh Yeshiva Smir, my father's Rebbe, that there is here three things. The first is Geshem, is the rain. The rain helps to be matzmiach, the tvuah, the peiros, it should grow. And this is one thing. The Rebbe also, in the Ruchnias for the Talmid, he gives him to be goydel zayin, to matzmiach, and to be misale. The neshama will be bigger and bigger. This is the Rebbe gives the Talmid like rain. The second thing is that it's like a sun. A sun is the mile of the sun it doesn't that just give the word that should be sweet and should be goydel zayin, should be bigger. It's also meir the oilam. You could see where you're going. You won't fall in some. You won't lo litakel beize even, lo lipol. Should go and won't fall down. You could see how you're going in the street. And another thing is like Avaim, that the place where a Talmid called Big Goydel Zayin, who misale Zayin, is just if with his Rebbe. So I wanted. My father was all of these three things. He also was he gave the Talmidim like rain should go יכולים להתעלות, ללמוד, להבין, to know how to learn, and also like a hammer, like a son, that they were like a son that should know איך להתנהג בדרך, how to go in the way, כל החיים ללמוד איך להתנהג in all of the מצבים that you have. And also like a father and mother, he was doeg the Talmidim, he was melav the Talmidim, all life from they came to Yeshiva until they were already have grandchildren. Everything he was doing for them. My father, Rabbi Perlman, was bizoiche to teach here in the yeshiva, and all of the mix, and the ganze Torah, also be'aloche, be'gmore, agodo, musar. I want to say some nekudes how from we could learn from my father. The first thing is charitzut. Not to take the time, not to take the time to go away from you. I don't remember my father sitting down, doing nothing, just sitting and sitting on the sheval asapa benach. He didn't sit down all the time. He was doing things, learning or on the phone or talking. He never sit down and doing nothing. There were no things. The second thing is rizus, to do what you need to do. Also, he will make. Also, if it's a little hold for him, he never said, "This is too hard for me. This is I can do. This and I cannot do." Another thing is the Seder Yom. My tate had a Seder Yom. He was mesudar every day. What he does from morning until night. Every Seder had the things that was in that Seder. He said to us once that if you want to take Mishnayos to learn for Elul Neshama, so don't. You could take it just if you give it every day a few minutes, time every day to do. If you won't take and give it time to do, you will not do it. It will not go. Another thing he has, says the Mishnah, the Eretz Kodma LaTorah. To be Zoichet to Torah, you need to be a Midas Toivos. You need to have the Eretz. His friend said in Yeshiva when he's a Bachur, so when he saw a new Bachur come to Yeshiva, he was wanting to him and tell him, come sit by us in the table. His friend said, what he brings now, another Bachur? He said, what is for a new Bachur? He doesn't know where to sit. Come sit with us. You'll be with mein Chabura. Come with us, sit with us. Another thing, he didn't pick up hands when it was very hard. When he came here the first in Eretz Yisrael, he wanted to go learn in Ber Yankov Yeshiva by Harav Olbe. And he came to the yeshiva, and they didn't want him in the yeshiva. So we didn't put up the hands, though they don't want me here, I'm going back home to America. No, he tried more and more until he got to the mirror and there. And then he was goydel matzmiach until he was Talmid Chochem. Another thing, I said, Aseilech Harav. Everything that we need to know, he was shoel zayin the Rabbanim, his Rabbanim. And he had the salt of Rabbanim, all of Rabbanim. Ever was teaching us something in the life, he was oiches that here is his rabbi. It was פעם כשהוא התחיל לחתן את הילדים, שהוא need to be mischayev to money for the children, and he didn't want. He was so yasher, so emes. He can't take money on himself, take something on himself that he doesn't know from where he could pay. He went to ask the Mendel Weinbach, and after that, Oscar Steinman, and they told him that you need to do it. Also if you don't know from where you will pay it. And he did it, I feel that it was hard for him because he was so yashuas and emes, he almost cannot do it. But the Rebbe says he didn't do just what the Rabbi Yosef says. Yitain Hashem Yisbach that we will zoiche to take his miles, a little bit from the miles, and we could be misnachim dain with this. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help that you should be al Yisrael for us, for all of the yeshiva, and we be la amovus l'netzach u'mocha Hashem Elokim dima ma'al kol ponim v'noim aromein.